The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christopher Barnes. I make up 1/3 of the candidate development team for TPE 2017. We want to welcome you to our webinar series. Today's presentation will be focusing on preparing for the summer job search. As you all can see on the screen, we have two webinar facilitators who will be joining us today, Michelle McGee as well as Stephen Sweet, as well as myself who will be moderating. So before we actually dive into introductions by Michelle and Stephen, I kind of want to talk to you all first about the webinar outcomes and overview, and then some other information that will be helpful moving forward. So in regards to the outcome for the webinar, what we want you all to take from this presentation, so basically we want you to be able to identify strategies to be successful before, during, and after the interviews. We also want you to together effectively answer interview questions and also be able to strategize on revamping or slightly modifying your solution. You know, all of so hello? Hello? Can people hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, all right, sorry about that. Yes, like I had really bad reception, so I apologize to everyone. So in regards to what were people able to hear?
Just a little bit about the overview.
Okay, all right, cool. So basically, yes, like I was saying before, in regards to the overview, we'll be talking about the reality check, the fact that the job search is not over, and that employers are constantly and consistently looking for new employees. Also, be talking about self-assessment, broadening the scope, what to expect in regards to the interview and during the interview, but also keeping in mind this is a marathon and not a race. And so, you know, just because you may have some colleagues who may have found like their perfect job already does not mean that you will not find yours in the near future. Then last but not least, some other tips and tricks in regards to navigating the summer job search. So before we dive into the intros from Michelle and Stephen, I do want to keep you all, I do want to inform you all that you are able to ask any questions that you would like through the dashboard that you have on your computer screen. So for those of you who have questions, you can go ahead and enter your question into that box, and then I will receive the questions, and then while Stephen and Michelle are presenting, I can answer the questions, and then at the very end, I'll give Michelle and Stephen a chance to go ahead and answer the questions as well. Another point I want to bring up before going into the rest of the presentation is that keep in mind that these webinars are being recorded. And so with that being said, we will post our recordings on our YouTube channel. So for those of you who might have colleagues who were not able to join us today, they will be able to hop onto YouTube and check out our channel and review or view any of the webinar presentations that we have given. And so with that being said, I want to turn it over to Michelle and Stephen to tell you more about their professional background, what they currently do, and then their experience in working with and preparing candidates for summer job search. So Michelle and Stephen.
Stephen, you want to go first?
Sure, I wouldn't mind doing so. Hello, TPE friends out there. I'm Stephen C. Sweat. I'm currently Assistant Director of Residential Life at Florida International University, just outside Miami, Florida. I currently am working as the primary advisor for our Residence Hall Association here. I work with our National Residence Hall Honorary Chapter, and I'm pretty much the person that you go to for the Resident Assistant Program, recruitment, selection, training, and development. Everything involving student leadership is under my purview with our Department of Office of Residential Life. Before that, I pretty much kind of had the usual student affairs type of professional upbringing. I was an RA, resident assistant, for about 3 years at Clemson University, very much involved there. Graduated and went to University of Florida, where I got a master's in student personnel and higher education, and then moved on to my first position outside of grad school as the entry-level professional at Towson University in Maryland. And then actually came here after 4 years being in Towson to be a mid-level professional here at FIU, doing everything that I love in terms of my niche of student residence hall government. And I guess talk a little more about my experience working with preparing candidates for summer job searching. Really my experience have been actually being in that particular experience before. So I can give a little bit of some tidbits and some insight in terms of me actually being in where a lot of you may be right now.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle McGee. I am currently a regional manager of development for a nonprofit, Cure Search for Children's Cancer. However, my background is in higher education. I graduated in 2012 from North Central College in Naperville with my master's in higher ed. I did a graduate assistantship with the Office of Multicultural Affairs. And prior to that, I was in residential living and learning. So a lot of my background does come from student housing. And in the last year or so, I have been working with this national nonprofit, but I still keep my ties to higher ed as I plan to transition back. I just wanted to develop some other skills and sharpen those skills. So I'm very excited to be a part of this presentation. And in terms of my experience with working with candidates, I still currently work with our interns here at my current role just to help them transition to different jobs. And I have, as Stephen mentioned, my own experience of preparing for a summer job search in higher ed as well. Chris, you want to go to the next slide?
Gotcha.
So let's start things off with a reality check. I want to make sure that the first thing that we share is that the search season is not over. Now, a lot of folks will say that a good majority of what we see out there in higher education and affairs is usually between that December, January time to all the way about April or May. But just like in any field, we're all searching, we're all being, as employers and candidates, we're all looking for people to complete our staffs and our teams throughout the entire year. So just realizing that it's not the end of the journey. For some, it could be still be the beginning, it could be the middle, it could be wherever you are in your particular job search journey, but the season is not over. And there's always positions that are opening up every day. I currently see something comes up really every so often when we have our usual mailings from acuho-i, things from NASPA every so often. So people are still searching. People are still looking for people to work with their particular organizations. Another thing I wanted to share is that the good candidates still exist. And what we mean is that you amazing ladies and gentlemen who are taking the time out to have conversations with us about this particular topic. You're making that proactive effort to see, where am I right now? And what do I need to do to get from where I am to where I need to be during this part of my job search journey? Realizing from the employer standpoint that they're still out there, they're still looking for individuals, they're still looking for a lot of you in this conversation. So hopefully you get a lot of insight and perspective from what Michelle and I will share to continually enhance your experience in interviewing and continue to be good candidates moving forward. Institutional fit is a real thing, and I think from my conversation with colleagues and professionals that some have different views of what fit actually means and what it actually looks like. And to me, it really depends on the institution, the department, and what that particular employer is looking for. So when fit comes into play, it could be anywhere to whatever team that department or organization is trying to create as part of their mission and vision. It could be the experiences they're trying to pull in from their candidates when it comes to creating that team for the organization. And interestingly, it could also be, that reflective piece that the employers are looking for to say, this person is great in the interviews, they have an amazing resume, their references are on point, but if for some people, if they don't see you seeing you growing to really get forth to your goals or aspirations, they may want to save your time and your effort by saying, we might not be able to give you what you want in your growth and development in this field, but other folks might be able to give that to you. So we're okay to say that we may not be a fit for you, but somebody else in this field might be for you and moving forward in your process. So don't really kind of like look at it as, oh, they don't like me as a personal reflection of you, but it could be just a multitude of things when it comes to the idea of fit. And of course, part of the conversation is like making adjustments as you see fit in your job search journey. We're going to talk more about that. Two more things that we want to talk about as well is social media posts. I know we talked about that before. We do see every so often, yay, on Facebook, say, yay, I'm going to be the new area coordinator in this institution. And it can be a little discouraging at times when you're still in your own particular job search journey. But just realize that everyone's journey is unique. We're in different areas of where we are in our processes. So to just don't, compare yourself to everybody and what they're doing. They'll get their time. You'll get your time as well. And of course, we talk about this a lot when it comes to our conference time with TPE and coming to the placement exchange in person. But this does kind of pull through within your time here in the summer. Is to really be careful who you talk to about your interview experiences and the positions that you're looking for, because you don't want to kind of badmouth the interview in front of like colleagues at a luncheon, on campus, or anything like that, and where you are currently, and a friend of that colleague might be a person at the institution that you just interviewed with. So we are a small field, and the resume life are even smaller. So still hold true to a lot of feedback that we send out to folks from the very beginning of a job search experience, to be careful of who you talk to and how you talk to them about different experiences in your journey. I think, Michelle, is there anything you want to have to add to that, other insight?
No, I think you covered everything.
Oh, perfect. That's good. We move on to self-assessment.
All right. So now that you all had a chance to hear a little bit of key points for a reality check, let's talk about the self-assessment piece, which is really, really big in the job search and the interviewing process. It will take you very far, even professionally, as you begin your career. I'm a big fan of self-assessment, so let's look at some of these questions that are up on the screen. So assessment of your previous interviews. Why haven't you found success? What do you need to change? And what have you learned so far? I think these are great questions to ask when you're constantly landing those first round interviews, those phone interviews, those Skype interviews, and maybe you're not hearing back. It's time to do some self-reflection to hear, what can I be doing to grow as a person and as a professional? Gather feedback. So your supervisor is a great starting point. So if you're currently working with someone now and you feel like you have a great relationship with them, that is a great time to sit down with them and gather that feedback. Hear what they really think of you as a professional and things that you could be working on. Lean on your mentors. That's why you selected them as a mentor or why they selected you as a mentor. Lean on them. Ask them to work with you one-on-one. Ask them for words of encouragement so that you can get through the interview process and the job search process. And then previous schools that you were unsuccessful. So, give it a few weeks. Maybe you heard from a particular institution and you didn't land the role there. It's always a good gesture to reach back out to say, thank you for the opportunity to interview. What is it that I could do better in my interview so that you can be prepared for the next interview. And then be open to feedback. So there's a difference between accepting feedback and being open to feedback. So being open to feedback is truly taking that feedback in, making necessary adjustments so that you can be a stronger applicant. And don't take it personally. So anything your supervisor says, your mentor may say, or even a previous school you may have interviewed with, don't take that feedback personally. They're giving you that feedback so that you can grow as a professional and as a person. We all have been in that situation. When I interviewed to be a graduate assistant, I interviewed for a few different positions before I landed on my final one. And so it was very good to hear feedback on things I needed to improve. It might be something as small as, maybe my hand gestures, just the little things that you don't consciously think about. That feedback was good. And I didn't take it personal, and I still have very great relationships with those people. So, being open to that feedback and not taking it personal. And then practice. Practice with your friends, practice with your mentors or supervisors on some of those interview techniques. And I think if you put all of that together, it does make you a stronger candidate and makes you more confident as you continue to go through the process of interviewing. Stephen, do you have anything else you want to add?
I think the number one thing I would definitely say is I definitely echo what she mentioned about being open to feedback, gathering their feedback and everything. Because when it comes to a lot of the folks, current supervisor, previous supervisor, mentors, they want to see you be successful. So be able to, of course, be open to feedback. I know for a lot of us, it could be easy to take it personally. And even myself sometimes, when I was kind of like a young professional, a young graduate professional, kind of developing myself and everything like that. But just being okay with the idea of that a lot of what people are suggesting to you and offering to you is to really make you stronger. It's to really make you a more confident and engaging candidate moving forward. So definitely go in there, get the feedback, be open to it, don't take it personally, and always practice, practice, practice.
All right, Chris?
So let's talk about broadening our scope a little bit. When we're talking about broadening the scope, it's really kind of thinking about where you are and what changes may need to take place within your particular job search journey to get you to that job that you need to have within the next couple of weeks or months, however that time frame will be for you. So broadening your search, you're talking a little bit about the positions that you're looking for, the locations, other non-negotiables. So the possibility of broadening your position. So it's really kind of getting that reflective thinking to see, what were you looking for initially in terms of experiences, the supervision that you will receive or offer, as soon as you get a chance to work with, and what are you able to, work with at this point in time. I know that I've heard of a story from a colleague of mine, another kind of a brown mat lunch about topic of the similarity, where they're very much interested in working here at FIU in leadership and service. However, there was an opening in academic advising. So this individual was able to go with academic advising. They was in it for about a year and a half, I want to say. But something did open up in terms of leadership and service, and they interviewed. They had a great time. The employer loved her, and they offered opportunities for her to come and join their team. So it could be an interesting tangent to get you where you will want to be in the future. So be open to that for some of you. When it comes to location, there's two ways to look at it. There are some folks in their journeys that have the luxury of broadening their search. So if you're more of like, I just want to be in the Mid-Atlantic area. But if nothing is really biting there, you may want to expand out to say, maybe I could go as far south to southeast, maybe go into central mountainous areas, maybe go up further north in New England areas. And some folks, you know, based on their values and what's important to them, they want to be close to family or close to significant others, partners, boyfriends, girlfriends, however you term it. So they might not have the luxury of broadening as much as some folks may have in their own job search journeys. So really kind of an opportunity to think a little bit about what are you able to, you know, either work with now or what could be postponed until another portion of your job search journey comes to fruition. And of course, other non-negotiables. You know, are you okay having a lateral move versus moving up in your career? Are you okay if some folks aren't able to pay for your professional development if they kind of share the information? Are you okay paying for your own? For our housing and rest of life folks, are you okay if you live off for a bit to live back on for a couple months or a year or two? So really kind of thinking about those things as well. The job searches that we have out there, we do continually have people come back to the TPE website and post more positions, more openings that are out there. But the same thing holds true for everything outside of TPE, such as higheredjobs.com, the Vita from Chronicle and Higher Education, Inside Higher Ed. I've also been told that there are a lot of things coming out from Indeed and ZipRecruiter. So a lot of things that aren't really student affairs, higher education focused, but really more of the larger job search portions that are out there in the greater world. So really kind of have an opportunity to make an effort to visit these locations, check them every so often. I know many of them have a particular job search agent. You're able to type in, you know, I'm looking for a full-time in this region, in this metropolitan area, with these amount of years experiences from a particular opening. And they can actually send you emails daily, weekly, or monthly in terms of, so these are the actual openings that are out there based on your criteria. Take a look at them and see what you want to apply and interview with in the upcoming days. And then lastly, a resume makeover. Giving an opportunity to think about, you know, what are some things that you might want to change in your resume? I know resumes come in different shapes, sizes. People have different ideas about how many pages you want to have. Utilizing a white space, presentation opportunities, awards and recognition. So I can go on and on about that. But, you know, thinking about a little bit in terms of if you haven't had an opportunity to get further from the application or even past the first round interview, maybe kind of take a look at your resume. Are you adequately sharing who you are as a professional with your resume? One piece of feedback that I've heard from a colleague of mine is that the resume from like 5 years ago or so is not the resume that we're looking for this day and age. We're looking a lot more beyond the copy and pasting of your position description to be more of like, actually, what did you do in this position for 3 to 4 years, how many years you're in this position, and even looking at quantifying your experiences. Thinking about during my time as a resident life coordinator, I was a co-chair in this committee where we did A, B, C, and D projects, and we reaped these results from these projects. I adjudicated 50-plus student conduct cases involving alcohol misconduct, illegal drugs, and marijuana roommate conflicts. Really kind of telling a little bit about what did you specifically do in your time in this position. Consider changing the focus. Sometimes we're thinking about if you're looking for a particular type of position, such as student conduct, probably looking at your experiences that tie in very well to the concept and the topic of student conduct. Looking at student conduct adjudicated cases, working with a civility education programming, looking at your work at Title IX, work with victim empowerment, things of that sort, in terms of the idea of how you're working with the overarching concept of conduct in different areas and jobs you work on as a grad, as an entry-level professional, or even as assistant director or area coordinator, depending on your job search journey. And of course, don't be afraid of the resume makeover. It is part of what my supervisor would say, we can always do better. We can always see how can we further enhance our story in paper format that would further enhance our story when we communicate that with our future employers. Anything else about broadening the scope, Michelle? Things to elaborate on?
Yeah, so I just wanted to piggyback off of the resume makeover. Just from personal experience, I actually use a resume writing service. I know that's something that is not strongly encouraged, but I just wanted to see, you know, how it worked, how someone who didn't know me would sell me on a piece of paper. Because your resume is your first introduction to any company, any institution, anyone who's trying to get to know a little bit about you. So I took the leap, and I have two different versions of my resume. I have my educational one that I'm constantly adding to, and then I have the other one that was redone by a resume writing service. And I love them both, and I get positive responses from both of them. But at one point I was scared to redo my resume because I felt like it just had to stay one certain way because that was all that I knew. But having that change gave even me a little bit more confidence when I went into those interviews, and that I felt that those employers knew more about me and felt more confident even when they were talking to me. So don't be afraid to utilize those resources that are out there. Also, an extension of your resume is LinkedIn. So a lot of schools are even looking at LinkedIn profiles before they even call you in for those interviews to see if, you know, your resume is adding up, or if you have any additional items maybe you didn't put on your resume, because everything can't go on your resume. So look at your LinkedIn profile too as an extension of your resume. So have fun with it. You know, try different things, especially if you are eager to, you know, try different areas of student affairs. I would say definitely don't be afraid of a resume makeover. And in terms of broadening your search, you know, don't be afraid to relocate. I relocated from Chicago to Texas for a job opportunity in housing. And so, you know, don't be afraid to relocate if that's something you are able to be flexible with. I know I hear a lot of people that I still talk to and mentor, they're afraid to make that leap because they don't want to leave family and friends. But if you have that luxury, I say go for it. You can always come back home, but you'll have some great experiences in a new location and be able to bring it full circle. That is it for me. Chris? All right, so we're going to talk about the fun part, which could be nerve-wracking for some people during the interview. So we talked a little bit more earlier about self-assessment. This is the perfect time to incorporate some of that feedback that you received in that self-assessment. So any feedback you receive from your supervisors, your mentors, this is a great place to incorporate that so you can shine bright on your interview. Be thorough and be concise in your responses, and employers appreciate that. Be very personable. So this is a great time to let your personality shine through. You are interviewing them while they are interviewing you. So definitely bring out your personality. It makes the vibe of the interview a little less tense. And people typically will hire you if they feel like they have a personal connection with you. So they don't want to feel like they're interviewing a robot or somebody who has scripted answers. Let you, your real you, shine through during that interview. Be interested and engaged, but not over-eager. So don't be, you know, too over-the-top energetic, but definitely be engaged while you're interviewing with that person. Ask good questions, and again, just show your true self in that. And then make sure you look and are prepared. So when you go on into the interview, make sure you have done your research on that institution. Know what the institution is all about, what the vision is, where they plan to go in the coming years. do your research on that department. What is the vision for that department, where they are going, how you think you may fit or how your role may fit into the vision of that department. Be prepared so that at the end you can ask those questions of how you fit and any additional questions about the vision of that department as well. And then just making sure you look the part, going in for an interview, not looking like you're going out for the evening, making sure you look the interview part. Next slide, Chris. Also during the interview, making sure you are answering the questions that are asked of you. So don't fall into those buzzwords. Don't start throwing out theories that you may have learned in class or something you may have heard someone talk about. Answer the question that they're asking, because they're really trying to get to know you as a potential employee of that department. And then be thoughtful in those answers. Don't just blurt out the first thing that comes to your mind. Don't be afraid to say, give me a moment to think about that, so that you can gather your thoughts and answer those questions thoughtfully. So, just be conscious of that. It's very easy you have 4 or 5 people sitting around a table and you don't want them to wait for you to come up with a response. But I think it shows that you are a very thoughtful person when you take a moment to pause and gather your thoughts before answering. And then use examples. Utilize storytelling to emphasize your point. So if you have a personal experience with a situation, maybe they're asking you about a conduct situation. So you have a personal story to share about a time you may have dealt with conduct, what you've learned from working in student conduct, that sort of thing. Use that to emphasize any key points that you're trying to bring home. I think they appreciate that, and it shows that you are in tune with the work that you're doing. And don't overemphasize. So you don't have to repeat the same thing over and over. Just sticking with that, 1 or 2 scenarios to emphasize, I think, again, shows that you are really connected with your role and that you are excited to share what you've learned so far. And then a simple formula is the answer, example, and then finish. I like to say keep it short and sweet, but be intentional when you're talking, when you're speaking to future employers about past experiences. Stephen, do you have anything else to add?
I think the number one thing that sometimes we forget is that examples are your best friends when it comes to interviews. It's one thing to actually answer the question, but it's another to actually back up your answer with an example from your time. So any time where it's like, tell us about a time where you did this, or what does your core values say about you, and then you answer, and then you explain your answer by having an example of how you walk the walk and talk the talk. So definitely, anytime you can practice various interview questions, answering about yourself or your experiences, have an example to say, in graduate school, I did this, and I've learned about myself from this experience in these ways, and I could apply this to this position. I think sometimes folks could even go further when it comes to answering questions by not just saying, the answer and example and finishing, but also how is it going to tie into this new experience? Maybe a grad student becoming an entry-level professional becoming a mid-level or mid-level BC student affairs officer. How is this going to further dictate my work as a potential employee for you? Okay, we can go on to our next slide. Yes, so this is a kicker right here, folks. It's a marathon. It's not a race. I will say it again. It is a marathon, not a race. So what we mean by that is it's not a one and done. It's not we're going to get through the application, first round interview, second round interview on campus, and we're done with everything within half a month to about a month, because it's not realistic in that way. It is a process. It is 100% a process. It's a process that we encourage you to trust, and that we encourage you to work with, not against. For some folks in this webinar, this conversation might lead you to starting over. It might lead you to have the opportunity to kind of stop where you are, work with your mentor, work with your supervisor to say, I think it's a time for me to kind of just sit back a little bit, reflect, and then come back and see, do I need to kind of pull off the side of the road in my journey and try something new, or am I okay where I am right now? So don't be afraid to have the opportunity to have those hard conversations and say, I may need to start over, and work from the beginning and moving forward that way. Tenacity. This can be tiring, it can be frustrating, it can be difficult to do job search in general. You know, whether you were in the original bigger pool of folks during the spring semester, or if you're right here with summer, or if your job search journey takes you into the upcoming fall semester. Don't let it get you down. Don't let it, you know, take over your enthusiasm, your engagement, your opportunity to come back and be positive and to be your 100% individualized self when you go to these interviews. Make sure you have that patience, because with everything that we shared about starting over, tenacity, and patience and everything like that, if you don't have that idea to be positive, to stay the course, to be enthusiastic, to really stay confident in yourself, it may show up in a future interview that you do get. So definitely make sure that you're bringing your A game at every part of your interview, at every part of your job search journey. I know when I was in graduate school, we knew a lot of folks that we figured, you know, they were a great professional, they were a great graduate professional, they were great in all of our course discussions, they were amazing in practicum experience in interviews, in internships. They're going to be the first person in our cohort to get this job. And, you know, some folks that we didn't think were like, as great of a professional, they were good, they could be greater, but we're all like that, we're all better. But, you know, those individuals got positions back in April or May, and the other folks that we thought, whoa, I thought they would be the first person in our cohort to get this job, they really didn't find that nice fit or a nice connection between them and that employer until about September, October, I want to say. And that can happen. You might still be in this job search journey right now, and you could be in 3 processes right now, but you probably won't get that particular, like, yes, I'm in this position until maybe in the fall. So being okay with how diverse the processes are, how diverse the timelines are, and to really trust the process. You, as we mentioned before, you will find a job. You will have the opportunity to get that nice fit, that nice connection that you need so that you can be your 100% in this new position, in this new organization, this new department, and you can grow and develop for that next step you have in your career. Anything else?
Yeah, sorry. I think also to add to this particular slide as well is remembering self-care. So, you know, during this time, you're going to get tired, you're going to get frustrated, you're going to feel like you're just kind of spinning your wheels, but make sure you're taking care of yourself and you're stepping back and you're looking at everything with a big picture perspective and having good people, positive people around you, uplifting you, surrounding yourself with people that are currently employed in student affairs, but also people that are, you know, outside of student affairs that may have gone through a job process like this. Keeping those people around you for those words of encouragement when it does get a little bit tiring and you get frustrated. I think that's very important. And one of the things that I learned during my process was it was so important to step away from the process a little bit for a day or two and just do something with my friends, and then just leaning on those people who have been through what I'm going through because they got it, they understood. So doing that self-care is also important, and it'll give you a little bit more longevity and keep your mind fresh when you do get called in for those interviews, and also keeps your confidence very high throughout this process. Chris? So other tips and tricks and advice. So avoid tangents when you're going in for those interviews. Avoid those long tangents. Be mindful of the time. So if you have an hour interview scheduled, be mindful of that time so that you're not going over on your time. And then, as I mentioned before, just be yourself. That is the best thing that you can do, is be yourself. Show them who they're getting. Show them why you deserve to be a part of that institution or that department. Be gracious of others and institutions. And accept that you might need to change your strategy. It's okay to have a different strategy for that interview or for approaching an institution. It's totally okay to change the plan. And then remember, just always remember that something exists for you. So your journey is going to be very different from your best friend's journey, from your colleague's journey, from your classmate's journey. It's going to be very different, and you will get to where you're supposed to be when it's right for you. So just always keep that in mind. Even if you need to write it out somewhere on your notebook, on your wall, your daily mantra, just remember that something does exist for you, and you will find it in the right time. Stephen, did you have anything?
No, I myself personally, professionally can't say enough that something is out there. Sometimes it might not seem like it's out there at this current time, but like Michelle said, at the right time, the right job will be there, and the right employer will connect with you to say, hey, we want you to join our team because we saw these things in your experiences from our conversations, your resume, your references, and we want to see you grow and develop and really contribute to not only our team, but our department, our division, and our university. So that conversation, that time will come. So be patient. As I mentioned before, trust the process, work with the process, not against the process. And we've all in this call, I'm pretty sure, in previous student affairs circles, like we've had job search journeys that have been easy, have been moderately easy, have been hard, difficult, have been fun, have been a little draining. But at the end of the day, we can learn from that experience. That we can pull forth insight and perspective from that experience about ourselves, about the field, about job search in general. So really, just taking some time to stay reflective, stay positive, and really work with the process, not against it.
All right.
Next slide. Yep.
All right. So with that being said, I do want to thank Michelle and Stephen for their presentation. It's currently about 2:42 on the East Coast. We have a little time now for some questions for those of you who have a few questions you would like to ask the presenters. We actually have two really good questions that just came in, and we also have a few others trickling in as well. So the first one comes from Catherine. She says, how detrimental is it to the job search if you resign your current full-time job before you have an offer? Does being unemployed seriously damage your candidacy for other search committees?
You want to go first, Stephen, or you want to?
That's an interesting question because I have met a couple of colleagues who have been in that particular situation. They have, for one reason or another, they ran to the point where, okay, I need to change right now, and this job is not really helping me at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and just resign and then just take a break from me. I think when it comes to employers, they may look at that particular break, if you will, and may come up with a couple of questions and everything like that. They may ask you in a interview questions, things of that sort. I would say it's usually, not too detrimental if you're honest a little bit about, what really happened and everything like that. To really say that, hey, I wanted a change. At that point in time, opportunities weren't really there, but I wanted to take a break. And we know that in our field of student affairs, it's very fast-paced, it's ever-changing, but sometimes some of the folks that really love the idea of student development, student engagement, and student affairs, that's why we're here, we're a helping profession, that sometimes a lot of our professionals may want to take a break before coming back to the field itself. So I really don't think it's too much of a negative per se, but really it's dependent on the rationale behind that. Is there anything else you want to add or really kind of put in towards that, Michelle?
Yeah, I would just, echo what you said. I think being transparent and the reason you may have left or the reason you may have quit your full-time job. I guess in your maybe similar situation, I have a student affairs background, and I decided that I needed to take a break. I needed a break. It didn't change my love of working with students or anything of that nature, but I needed a break. I needed something different. I needed a different type of challenge. And I know going back into student affairs this year or early 2018, I am going to have to discuss why I transitioned and why I'm coming back. So, and I'm prepared to do that. So I think just being transparent and talking through that, I don't think it's a detriment to your job search process.
And two more things I'd like to add as well. So kind of like what Michelle and Stephen both talked about, be prepared to talk about why you took some time off, because please believe they're going to bring that up in the interview. Especially if they have your resume sitting there right in front of you. It might not come up as like a formal question, but towards the end or somewhere during the interview, they're going to ask you, we see you took some time off. Can you kind of talk about why you took some time off and so on and so forth. And so just be prepared to answer that question because it's going to come up. But also, if you are going to take time off, make sure that you financially can do so. So you definitely want to make sure you have money saved up because you just never know how long you might be without a job or employment.
Mm-hmm.
So those are just two other tips that I would suggest if you are considering that route. We have a question from Kevin. So he pretty much says, let's see. I've run into this on 3 occasions. It's an email where they tell you that they have reopened the search and everyone has to reapply. Is this a school to stay away from? So in regards to like the schools where you apply the first time, you don't hear anything back, and then all of a sudden you get an email saying, hey, you need to reapply. Is this a school, or are these schools to stay away from, is what Kevin is asking.
I don't think that's a school that you need to necessarily stay away from, but I would definitely do some research. So I guess it depends on what their explanation is when they provide it. If they gave you an explanation as to why that particular search was closed. So they sent a formal letter from HR or something of that nature saying, maybe budget or restructuring of the department. If they provided some type of explanation, I don't think that it is something you should be fearful of. But I would, try to get in touch with someone in that department, or maybe see if you have a friend of a friend or somebody knows, maybe they can give you a little bit of insight of maybe what's happening internally. But I wouldn't 100% run away from that particular school. I would just definitely ask those questions of maybe, what happened, or just giving some insight of what is happening at that particular institution.
I would definitely echo the same thing because at first at face value, it could be a multitude of things. I think as they were talking about that particular question, what comes to mind is that sometimes folks don't have a successful search at the first time. Sometimes they've gone through everything from the on-campus, from the first round, second round, on campus, and they've gone through everybody, and either they weren't very confident in people that came in on campus, or the teams that did the interviews were very confident, or they offered to people and they didn't accept. that happens too, because everybody's job searching candidates are interviewing just as well as employers are interviewing individuals and everything in this process. So that could be a thing where, you know, you don't hear anything from anybody, and it's like, we have to go back to the drawing board. Just as we talked about before about starting over, sometimes employers have to start over. So I think just in working with a couple of grad students and entry-level professionals in various institutions that I know of, that they went over to TPE, they went over to Higher Ed Jobs and the VITA website, and it's like, hey, I've seen that opening like 2 or 3 months ago. Why is it open still or opened again? And there actually have been some people that actually say in their position announcement, we have reopened the process, and so they're very upfront and honest with that. Not just in people who have been in the HR pool and applied, but actually when they reopen the process and putting it out there in TPE, Higher Ed Jobs, into Higher Ed, they'll be upfront and say, hey, we are reopening this process. They may share why, they may not share why. But again, definitely get that insight, reach out to see if it's something you want to look more into, but don't really just say, I don't think I want to reapply. Yeah, still go ahead and reapply and see what happens in round 2.
Yeah. And it could also turn into, I was going to say, it also could turn into it could also turn into a good interview question as well. Maybe you can get a little bit more insight as to, what they're looking for in a potential candidate. It might just be a good conversational piece or something. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Is there any advice you all can give to someone that has no experience working in higher education, aside from being a student worker?
I would say get involved in things on campus. So those other student organizations, get involved with the hall councils if you live in a residence hall. Even if you don't live in a residence hall, I know I had some people who didn't even live in the residence hall. They were commuter students, and they just love to be involved with that type of programming. So I would say just get involved in any way that you can on campus to get that experience, to build your resume. And my shameless plug is Res Life. So if you want to dive in and get that multi-level experience, Residence Life is definitely it. It will give you every level of experience, everything you think you may want to do or may not want to do in student affairs. You will get it in Residence Life.
Indeed.
So if you have that option to be a RA or a hall director or a community director, every institution calls it something different. I would definitely dive into Res Life. Go to the program, just observe from a distance to see if that's something you really want to do. But just dive in and I'm all about trying it all out so something sticks. But Res Life is the hub of getting all experiences of student affairs.
And I will also add to that, I know it may sound like we're using a lot of like housing, Res Life examples and everything. We're student affairs, the bigger picture scope and everything, but that's kind of just currently the way our field is right now, and how residence life and housing is like, I guess, organizationally set up, that we do a lot for student development. We do a lot for student engagement that bleeds into everything from conduct, civility education, diversity education, student leadership, crisis management, strategic planning. Like we do a lot within residence life, and you can get a lot of transferable skills as a student, as a graduate professional, as an entry-level professional.
Yeah.
So definitely number one thing, transferable skills. Being able to say, oh, in this position that I'm looking for, even though it says preference for being a resident assistant, on-campus living experiences, so on and so forth, you could turn the tables a little bit by saying, I might not have been a resident assistant. However, I have had experiences in programming. I've had experiences in counseling. I have had experiences in mediation, in these other opportunities that might not be in the resident assistant purview, but I can still bring it in and communicate that during the interview itself.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see here. If you were terminated in a previous role in student affairs, how do you address it during an interview? Good question.
Good one.
Well, I guess for me, I would have to learn a little bit more of a context because when you say the term termination, it's probably just based off of like my recent work in supporting human resources and the resident system processing the behind the scenes portion. But I know in the HR world, the term termination could mean either resignation or it could be it's any form of separation, I think. So I before I could confidently answer that question, I would want to know if it's kind of like termination as in the employer had some tasks or some expectations that weren't met and accountability needed to be taken care of, and they were separated by being let go versus the employee wanted a change of pace and they resigned. But in the world of HR, it's still termination. It's a separation at some point. So, but I guess if we're going in terms of like the layperson terminology about terminating as in quote unquote you're fired, I think it's really an opportunity to be reflective, to really say, okay, for you to internally think about what led to this decision with the employer and really see, you know, what can you do to turn this negative experience into a learning experience? And really say, yes, even though you may have reached out to the previous supervisor who has let me go because of X, Y, and Z, here's how I've taken that experience and learned from it, and here's how I can bring this to this new experience and even do even better. And that's just part of me as a positive individual, you know, glass half full versus half empty, turn it the tables a little bit to really kind of like not really say that it's a bad thing, because a lot of folks can say, oh, you were fired. No, sorry. But if you can't get your foot in the door and really say, yes, unfortunately, I was let go for these reasons, but here's what I've learned from that time, and here's how I can take these learning opportunities and apply it to the future. And even if you have had the opportunity to do that already, sharing those examples I talked about before, like here's an example of how I have learned from that experience and utilized it in real life.
Michelle?
I mean, I don't have anything additional. I think the biggest thing, again, is just, you know, don't try to hide that. You don't want to hide that from an employer that it has happened. So just, you know, being reflective and just talking about it and showing your personal growth, I think that will help you in the long run. And I think we've all been through some type of, you know, journey with our job. So don't be, you know, ashamed of that either, that maybe that is something that happened.
If you already work in an entry-level higher ed position, is it necessary to notify your supervisor that you want to transfer to another department before applying for that position? And we have 1 minute, so this will be the last question. And then for those of you who have other questions, we can connect through email. So we encourage you all to email TPE Candidate Development, our Gmail account, so we can go ahead and answer those questions for you. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
I think it's a courtesy. You should definitely let your supervisor know it's something that you're considering before you apply, so it doesn't ruin the relationship with that supervisor. You know, let them know what your interest is, so they don't get blindsided that, you know, you received a job in a different department and they had no idea what's coming. I think it's just good professional, because you just never know in this work circle.
I would add that depending on the organization and the department, it's possible that, let's say, for example, going back to red light examples, that you do apply and you do go forth to be a residence director or campus coordinator, but you have a conversation with your supervisor about, I want to get more experience in this or that. And it could lead to opportunities in terms of, okay, you can work with, let's work with having you focus on this position for about a year, 2 years, and then do a collateral assignment with a particular department that can help you get more experiences for that particular position you're looking for. I'm kind of just thinking outside out of the box of this particular question. But I know this day and age, there's a lot of situations where you have like ad hoc positions and ad hoc responsibilities that further enhance your original concept of what you were applying for at the beginning. And that could be an opportunity where you can, in a way, have your cake and eat it too, where you can do both. But I do definitely see the previous response and everything like that does happen. But if it is a situation where you can be a complex coordinator in this example, and you do have the opportunity to, let's say, the other job is working with diversity education. You could be a tentative complex coordinator for diversity initiatives, and you could work with supervising grad staff and RAs, but also do like collaborative efforts about social justice education, diversity education, identity development, things of that sort. So you could have the best of both worlds if that situation presents itself to you.
All right, and so with that being said, it is currently 2:02 or 3:02 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so I do want to thank Michelle as well as Stephen for presenting today. And for those of you who have other questions that were not answered, if you could forward those to our email account, so candidates@theplacementexchange.org. We will go ahead and get those questions answered for you. Before you all leave, we have a few more things to discuss. So you can still also volunteer for TPE. So for those of you who, once you find employment and you're still looking to be involved within TPE, we highly encourage you all to remain involved. And so you can become a resume reviewer. There's also other ways that you can chip in or help out. You can help out by even maybe possibly in the future hosting a presentation, a webinar. So if you're interested, we encourage you to go to our website, where you'll be able to complete one of the TPE on-site volunteer sign-up forms or off-site volunteer sign-up forms. So we encourage you to do that. And then last but not least, we encourage you all to be looking out for more information regarding our next webinar, which will take place on June 15th. That webinar will be focusing on what to expect within the first 90 days of your full-time employment. And so look out for more emails from TPE regarding that upcoming presentation. So with that being said, we conclude this presentation, and we hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your week. Keep in mind that this presentation has been recorded, and so it will be placed on our YouTube channel. So for those of you who maybe came in a little late, or if you have colleagues who want to view this recording, they can do so on YouTube. So with that being said, have a good rest of your day. Bye.